should be alive.
So hello everyone, my name is Rodrigo Hübner. I'm the founder and CEO of Rodrigo Mendes Institute, and it's a great pleasure to lead this panel about a topic that is in the core of what Zero Project stands for, which is the elimination of barriers and the offer of accessibility in the education systems around the world. Today, we have provided some accessibility resources, which are subtitles, Brazilian and international sign languages, and audio description. The subtitles will be on your screen at all times. English audio description will be hosted on a separate audio channel, accessible through the link available at the description of the video. So all you have to do is to click and listen. Regarding sign language, we have with us Tabata Fernandes, who will be interpreting Brazilian Sign Language, and Fabio de Sá, who will be interpreting International Sign Language. Both will be on your screen at all times. So the Rodrigo Mendes Institute is an organization committed to guarantee that every child with disability have access to quality education in mainstream schools. We develop research and teacher training programs in several countries aiming to transform the public education systems into environments that respect and value human diversity. So today we are launching an international online community hosted by Zero Project in order to discuss how the new digital education resources and technologies can improve the inclusion of students with disabilities in mainstream schools. Therefore, our goal is to support teachers, school principals, public officers, and other specialists in terms of how to make the next step in each country or region regarding the construction of inclusive education systems through the use of digital technologies. So we are going to have here remarkable speakers that will address issues related to our subject. But before that, I want to say thank you to Zero Project and all the leadership, the openness, and all the effort that their team are doing to incentivize, to stimulate communities like this. Well, we are going to start with Bill Wilmot. Oh, Ernst is here. Oh, that's good. Hello, Ernst.
Hello everyone.
We were waiting for, so we have.
Yes, I'm sorry, I just came from a session at the Zero Project conference.
No problem, no problem.
Sorry.
So I invite you, Ernst, to represent Zero Project, and please, if you could talk about the importance of this community, that will be great. So welcome again, and a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. Thank you. I just came from another session on the ground in Vienna at the Zero Project conference, so I ran a bit late. I'm sorry about that. It's an honor to be here on this panel and to be able to present the Zero Project to you, and especially the Zero Project communities, which is an initiative that started in 2021. First of all, I would like to thank you also to the Rodrigo Mendes Institute to be organizing this partner channel session and to be launching also this new community, which is always a very valuable thing, and this is what we are striving for. First of all, I have to apologize in the name of Sumita Kunashakaran. She's our civil society manager here at the Zero Project, and unfortunately she was not able to make it because of some conflicts in the scheduling of the Zero Project conference, but I'm very happy to be here instead of her and jump in. My name is Ernst Starhemberg. I'm a white male with blonde hair and a dark blue suit on today. I'm the project assistant at the Zero Project. And today I will tell you just a very short summary of what the Zero Project communities are. So as I said, the Zero Project communities were started last year by the Zero Project. What was the reason for this? What was the reason for starting that? What is our aim in doing so? We as the Zero Project, as the organization, we want to build long-lasting, meaningful connections between the experts in our network, which we are very proud of, and we have about 9,000 experts now, and the number is rising, fortunately. This is one of our essential tasks throughout the year, and actually one of the pillars of our organization is to connect these experts and put them in a room together. We also wish to better communicate the work of the Zero Project and our network to a wider public by doing this. Through our communities, we can widen our reach and include experts from all around the globe. Experts like they're on this panel today. So what is a community? A Zero Project community is a group of people interested and experienced in a particular type of innovation, in a particular sector. This could be something like online job platforms or employment programs for people with autism. But communities can span all types of topics and interests. Examples of our communities are arts and museums, strategic consultancy for companies, job creation in the IT sector, or accessible online maps. Or for example, of course, the one we're launching today. So what is the exact purpose of the initiative of the Zero Project communities? Well, there are a couple, and the first one is to create a community of leaders around specific types of innovations and connect them to key stakeholders who can amplify and support their work. We also want to thereby support knowledge, exchange, and showcase international good practices. We do this by bringing innovators into the same room, into a joint discussion, virtual as today or physical in the best case. We also want to undertake joint work projects where relevant and sensible. And lastly, is an essential point is also to provide networking possibilities and visibility in our conferences and beyond. At the Zero Project, we are very proud of this initiative, and we are proud that so many of our partners, experts, and friends are joining in, just like today, and a big thank you for that. It is a great opportunity, we think, and I think, to create synergies and especially to learn from others, and also to learn from others' mistakes, to, in the best case, to be able to skip those mistakes, to jump up some steps that maybe others did before you, and to exchange ideas and find really innovative and creative solutions in a joint effort. If this is a short summary of the Zero Project communities, and if it's sparked your interest, please contact us or contact the Rodrigo Mendes Institute directly. Join the dialogue and learn from your peers. I would say that's a good conclusion. And as you said, Rodrigo, you're launching this community, and it will be an absolute pleasure if out of this panel here, some people would join, some people would show their interest. And of course, you can also contact the Zero Project directly if you're eager to know more about the community's initiative. And yes, I think this should be a good introduction to the topic itself. And I thank you very much and see you.
So thank you, Ernst. We are very proud of building this community with Zero Project and all the other friends that are already taking part of it, like Claudia and other close friends. Just complementing my introduction, I am a white man with dark hair, and I'm wearing a white shirt, and I'm wearing also glasses. Now, jumping into our discussion about the contribution of digital technologies to inclusive education, I would like to invite the first specialist of the panel, which is Bill Wilmot from CAST. Bill is an Universal Design for Learning implementation specialist at CAST. the originator of UDL, as you may know. He works with schools and districts to rethink curriculum, instruction, and learning environments to provide access to all, using the UDL framework as a tool for redesign. Before CAST, Bill was a school leader and founder two different schools, one focused on integrating the arts and the other an inclusive school designed to support academic, social, and emotional learning. He started his career teaching math and science. So, Bill, thank you very much for being with us. I know that you are in Boston and that it is snowing, so I hope you are warm. Could you please tell us? Could you tell us how should teachers select digital technologies in order to implement the universal design for learning in inclusive schools?
Thank you, Rodrigo. Good morning from me, morning, other times for other people. Bill Wilmot, I am a UDL implementation specialist, white male, and my son tells me I have gray hair now, not brown hair. And I am going to share a few slides just as a quick introduction to UDL and background on universal design for learning. And then get into this question that you asked, Rodrigo, around technology and UDL. So universal design for learning, it's an educational framework based on research in the learning sciences. It guides the development of flexible methods, materials, and environments that embrace variability, minimize barriers, and develop expert learning for all. So there's a definition that will only take us so far, but really in the shortest form, UDL supports the design of multiple pathways for learners to the same goal. So here we have a goal that we're all interested in pursuing. As a teacher in a classroom, we're bringing these goals for our students that we want them to pursue. And we have illustrated different pathways around barriers that might exist so that all learners are able to get there. Technology plays an important role in facilitating those different pathways, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. The underlying reality of that UDL is built on is that variability of learners is the norm. So we have on the screen a brightly colored interconnected image of the brain that shows us just how complex the brain is. The idea that we have these billions of neurons and that they would all be connected in the same way is almost a fantasy, right? We have billions of neurons and they're all interconnected in different ways, in ways that are predictable to some degree, but unique for each of us. So the idea of disability being somehow fundamentally different is not accurate, right? There's a continuum of difference, and that's what we need to design for. So UDL really embraces a mindset shift from every learner has barriers that they have to overcome, shifting that to every learning environment has barriers embedded in it that can be minimized through thoughtful design and thoughtful use of technology. The core tool of UDL is the UDL Guidelines. So it creates for us a common instructional language. It creates a summary of how learners vary. It is a tool for anticipating those barriers that may be embedded in learning environments. It's a practical summary of research. Each one of the checkpoints in the guidelines are based on research in neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and the learning sciences. And it guides our design and decision-making. So especially our decision-making around technology tools. The image of the guidelines is on the screen now, 3 columns, 1 green, 1 purple, 1 blue. And I've included a resource document that perhaps we can find a way to share with folks at a later time, Rodrigo, that has links to all of the resources that I'll share, including the guidelines in multiple different languages. So UDL is a framework that supports both proactive design, thinking about how we might design a learning environment for the future, and reflective practice, looking back on what's just happened in the lesson that we just taught, in the school year that we just concluded, and supports us to think about what progress did we make toward goals, did learners make toward goals, and what aspects of the design may have represented barriers to the goals that we're hoping to achieve. So I think of the UDL guidelines as not a replacement for all of the instructional tools, including technology that we're bringing into the classroom. It's the organizer, right? It's the toolbox that helps us organize our tools. And we see that image on the screen of a highly organized toolbox. It helps us know what tool to use at what time. And so those could be low-tech or no-tech tools and strategies and classroom practices that we could think about organizing, and it could be technology tools that we want to bring into the classroom. So the guidelines give us a framework for making decisions about how to use technology, what technologies might be most effective for what purposes. So I'll dive briefly into the three columns of the UDL guidelines, the three principles. First, multiple means of engagement, right? We know from neuroscience that all learners engage with learning in different ways. And if they're not truly engaged, they won't learn things in a way that they'll be able to transfer them to new environments. So UDL calls us to provide multiple ways for learners to engage. Multiple means of representing information. So multiple ways that we're going to share information with learners. So a lot of this audience probably knows about the crucial piece that accessibility plays in representing information in multiple ways. We are here simultaneously representing information in multiple ways through sign language, through audio description, and through closed captioning. And then finally, multiple means of action and expression. This is the third blue column. Multiple ways for learners to take action and show us what they know, express what they know. So we can design each of these proactively so that learners come into a learning environment, into a learning experience, and have ways to access from the beginning all of these different means of engaging, of taking in information and sharing information with us. So let's look in a little bit more detail at each of these principles and what technology might look like in each of these cases. I'm sharing just a few examples. There are, of course, many, many more examples, and that resource document has links to all of these. So in terms of multiple means of engagement, how can technology support multiple means of engagement? At the core of this principle is really understanding, being clear about what learning goals are, understanding those, communicating those with learners, communicating the relevance and purpose of a learning goal. The Goalbook app is one goal tracking and goal monitoring system that can be used for really putting goals at the center of planning and also sharing those with learners so that there's transparency around what the goals are that we're pursuing. I always say if we give learners a task without a goal, then the only thing that they have to become interested in and to buy into is the task. They can't become interested in the goal. The only option they have is to comply with a task. Another crucial piece of engagement is staying focused on that goal, modulating your and regulating yourself through the ups and downs of learning. So self-regulation is a key piece of this. The Mood Meter app is one that supports the tracking and assessment of affect and mood over time. It creates the opportunity to have a conversation and the language to have a conversation around when a student is getting frustrated with pursuing a learning goal or when it's going well. So in terms of technology supporting multiple means of representation, Vocaroo is a quick, easy, simple audio recording tool that can be used. It creates a unique link that can be embedded anywhere. Clusive is a customizable, accessible reading environment that we actually created at CAST. And I'll just show you quickly on the screen. I'm showing an environment that allows us to upload documents and create a customizable reading experience for learners. So learners have complete control over the display of this information. They can change the spacing, the font, the contrast, all sorts of different controls that they have. This also allows teachers to track student reading. It allows them to track their vocabulary and manage vocabulary. So they have vocabulary trackers on here. So all kinds of ways to kind of customize and think about how best to manage the taking in of information, making sense of that and comprehending it. And then finally,
Bill, sorry to interrupt you. So
please.
If you could just go to the final message, please.
Yeah, absolutely. The final message is that by providing these options to all of our learners, we're creating an environment that everyone can participate in, and we're creating a culture that embraces variability, right? Not one that just accommodates learners with disabilities, but really embraces the idea that we all vary in how we're learning, and that we're all going to use these this great variety of technology tools that we have available to us.
Well, that's fantastic, Bill. You know, I am a fan of CAST and of UDL. I have been studying UDL for the last 8 years, and I had an opportunity to meet David Rose after a conference at Harvard, and you know, this framework of the three principles you explore, yeah, helped me a lot in a completely different area. I was training to pilot a racing car with my mind, and it was very difficult to establish patterns regarding how the computer could understand my commands. And after many weeks training, I explored different senses of my brain, which I read in the book of CAST, that different senses stimulate different areas of the brain. And so I used that, like that concept, and after that I could manage to at least experience driving the car. We can share that later. Yesterday there was a panel here in Zero Project, especially about this experience. So great to have you with us, and to have you also somehow part of this community. Well, let's go to our second specialist, who is in Rio de Janeiro. So her name is Claudia Werneck. She's a journalist, an activist, a pioneer disseminating the concept of inclusive society in Latin America. The only Brazilian writer recommended simultaneously by UNESCO and UNICEF, and she's the author of 14 books about inclusion in Portuguese, English, and Spanish. She founded Escola de Gente 20 years ago, which works so that laws and public policies transform into inclusive everyday practices. The NGO has been awarded with more than 80 national and international awards, including by once the presidency of Brazil, and impact more than 1 million people in 19 countries. So, Claudia, thank you again for the continuous partnership, for the friendship, and for being here today. Can you please talk about which aspects of digital accessibility should pedagogical teams guarantee in their teaching activities? So if you could illustrate, that would be great. And could you please talk about the app you developed called Vem Cá?
Thank you, Rodrigo. It's a pleasure to be here. Rodrigo has described me. I mean, as you have of the description here, I know I have been describing, and for a person who is doing this, but as a career, you explained that I am journalist, writer, political activist, and then I founded my organization, Escola de Gente, 20 years ago. Escola de Gente literally means school of people in 2 sentences. First, you are unconditional followers of people, and we do not admit any form of discrimination. Second, we educate people for the practice of an inclusive society. Since its foundation, Escola de Gente has worked based on 2 beliefs and 1 challenge. Belief 1, it's impossible to practice inclusion without transforming communication. Belief 2, it's impossible to transform communication without digital technology. Challenging, how to mobilize the ICT's world to collaborate with the process of inclusion, mainly with the scope of inclusive education. I believe there is no inclusive society without inclusive education. And as Rodrigo, I am a tireless advocate for inclusive education. And that is why I'm here on this panel launched by the Zero Project Conference, and by my dear friend Rodrigo Mendes and his institution, whose work is admirable in Brazil and abroad. And I thank the invitation very much. Well, Escola de Gente has been working with inclusive and in-person accessible communication, innovation, seeking digital technology solutions in performing arts, in reading strategies, in education of younger people with and without disabilities as a whole. And all these initiatives have been awarded by the Zero Project Conference. The DNA of Escola de Gente, trying to answer your question, Rodrigo, is recognized by the guarantee of a wide and diversified offer of communication accessibility resources to all kinds of disabilities at the same time. I mean, we do not choose one accessibility at a time. We do not choose one disability at a time. We do not choose a specific kind of person at a time. Only all the modes of communication I will repeat. Only when all modes of communication interact with one another, which is still here, that we will have the true experience of a world without communication barriers. And that is the world that needs to be replicated in every classroom. If there is no one with a disability or developmental disorder in it. Why? Because when we offer multiple accessibility, We educate kids and adolescents to learn how it is to live in an inclusive planet, motivating them to replicate this process throughout their lives. That is, now we create a new generation immersed in the concept and the practice of an inclusive society. For me, Rodrigo, it is the most important recommendation for the pedagogical teams that we can offer today, because it's our more important thinking. Despite our highly regarded history and experience, it was only with the COVID-19 pandemic that we realized how much psychological and physical suffering the lack of accessibility in the digital world can cause in people with disabilities. At the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020, when the flow of information abruptly migrated to online world without sign language, subtitles, audio description, and easy language, the population of people with disabilities began to face the greatest exclusion in their lives. The social isolation had a direct impact on the lives of children and adolescents who spent months without leaving home, and the only education offered was online distance learning, also lacking accessibility. Apart from that, they also had low or no internet connection in their homes, since the most of the people with disabilities in the world live in poverty areas in developing countries like Brazil, according to the UN. So there is a vicious relationship between poverty and disability that enforces a historical cycle of non-participation, because children with disabilities do not have access to the right of education. They are not noticed by the community as part of it. The exclusion increases. So how to break this cycle of non-participation? How to educate the new generations to rebuild the logic of the contemporary world that is so quick to discriminate and so slow to find inclusive solutions? As soon as COVID-19 started in Brazil, Escola de Gente made two decisions. One, we create our own technology to guarantee full online accessibility with the called inclusive hyperconnection, which we called inclusive hyperconnection. And actually it is being used right now to transmit this panel. Decision two, we decided to transform our accessible culture mobile app called Venka into a large online and accessible educational public place, a process that it is still being finalized since it depends on funding. The use of fully accessible mobile apps such as digital inclusive educational technology is not so common in Brazil. I do not know about other countries, but we believe it will be a good solution for the coming unstable years to have an accessible mobile app that is used in and out of schools, and that it is practical and easy to download on most phones, so that it does not reproduce the exclusion of other technologies. We came to the decision to use Venka app as a digital educational technology resource after reading surveys by the Internet Steering Committee in Brazil, 2020 ACT. In Brazil, 99% of the population over 10 years of age uses the cell phone as the main means to internet access. 58% of these users only access the internet through their phones, mainly among those belonging to lower social classes. The Venka app has more than 21,000 users and has just been acknowledged by the UN as one of the 400 best practice of SDGs in the world. Venka is also one of the winners of the Zero Project Award 2022. So Escola de Gente believes that the Venca app will have strength to help they counteract this educational isolation effect provoked by the pandemic. Escola de Gente will continue to make every effort to discover new inclusive and accessible digital ICT solutions, which are able to address at the same time the different and multiple communication needs of each student with and without disabilities in each and every classroom. We hope ICT companies join us, join Zero Project Conference, join Rodrigo, join all people here to create a virtual places in which children and adolescents with and without disabilities can learn together, really together, instead of having what we see today, platforms which are destined to a specific disability. And finally, Escola de Gente makes itself available to collaborate in all possible ways so that the greatest legacy of the pandemic is a democratic, inclusive, and free digital world. Inclusion is a systemic and non-polarized process of finding solutions to the new and old social dilemmas. We are essentially a single system. When we lose this notion, we also lose the capacity to believe and work towards an inclusive world. Thank you very much. Rodrigo and Zero Project Conference.
Thank you, Claudia. Always inspiring to hear you. Going to the last expert of our panel, she's Professor Diane Chambers, who coordinates and teaches into courses in the field of special and inclusive education at both undergraduate and postgraduate level. She also supervises students with master's and PhDs programs at the University of Notre in Australia. Dianne has a wide range of interests in the area of special education, including the use of assistive technology in regular settings, inclusive open education resource, and the preparedness and attitudes of beginning teachers to accommodate students with diverse abilities in their classrooms. Dianne consults with UNESCO and other organizations on guidelines for persons with disabilities and open and distance learning using open solutions and teacher education for global citizenship. So from the other side of the world, from Australia, hello, Dianne. I hope you are also safe and well. We are pleased to have you with us. Thank you for the participation. Going to the question here. Can you please explain how assistive technology and digital tools may support inclusive practice in the classroom?
Thank you so much, Rodrigo, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the Zero Project. I am a white female. I'm wearing a red shirt. I have blonde hair. Okay. So I just wanted to start off really just with a quotation that I particularly like, and this is quite an old one now from Mary Radabar, but it's, for most people, technology makes things easier. For people with disabilities, technology makes things possible. And I really do keep this at the forefront of what I do. Bill will be very pleased to know that I have a range of students at the moment, pre-service teachers, who are planning using UDL principles. We're actually teaching them how to do that at a pre-service level. So hopefully that will start to really impact across the world. So assistive technology, I just wanted to define very quickly. I've used the United States definition here, and it's one that's quite used quite commonly. So assistive technology is really any item, piece of equipment, product. It can be commercial, it can be something that you make, but it's used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of a child with disability. And this sort of fits in very nicely with what Claudia was saying in regards to, it's not just one disability we're focusing on, it's what the student needs in the classroom that we're really going to focus on. Digital tools include things like programs, websites, or online resources that can make tasks easier to complete, particularly for people with disabilities, but really for everybody. So assistive technology does a range of different things. One is that we try and focus on the students' strengths. So rather than focusing on what they can't do, we look at the strengths and try and augment those strengths as well. We're looking to ensure that the student with a disability can be as independent as possible in their learning. That's a really critical thing, because in Australia in particular, a lot of students with disabilities were given an assistant, and that assistant would sit with the student and they would never interact with anybody else in the classroom. They wouldn't do the same work. So making sure that that student can be independent in their learning really allows them to be part of that classroom environment. It also allows students to complete tasks that they might not be otherwise able to complete, and hopefully independently. It therefore enriches those educational outcomes for the student. As I said before, it's related to function rather than a particular type of disability. So I'm just going to very quickly go through the different types of assistive technology, and I know Bill touched on low tech. I'm a big fan of low tech, particularly in low-income countries. I've done some work in India, the Philippines, and Cambodia, looking at low-tech assistive technology. So low-tech is devices that are usually not electronic. They usually don't require much training. They can often be constructed by the teacher themselves or by somebody in the classroom. Medium-tech devices, reasonably complicated, and I'll take you through some examples of what that might be in a moment. And then high-tech devices usually are much more complex, and they're often specialised for particular types of functional need. For example, you might have speech output devices or prosthetic limbs, and they might be very specific to a particular need. So when we're looking at low-tech in the classroom, things like magnifying devices, book holders, self-opening scissors, and pencil grips are things that are low-tech. And you'd be surprised at how much low-tech can actually impact on students being able to be included in an activity. So if I have very young students in a classroom, for example, I might want to be using self-opening scissors if they've got low muscle tone. So I can actually be incorporating them into a classroom activity, but by using low-tech devices. We always
Diane,
start when we, go on.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just to help our audience in terms of reading the slides, I think it is not on the presentation mode. Could you please just confirm that, if that would be helpful, if you could.
No, let me try that again. Hang on. Why not? Here we go. My apologies. Is that better?
Oh, much better. And I'm sorry again. Sorry again.
No,
please.
That's okay.
Please, the word is yours.
With low tech, I wanted to go past this one actually and talk about other things that you can do. So I use things like shaving cream if I'm looking for a multi-sensory writing tool for students. It's very cheap, it's easy to clean up, and it's a really lovely multi-sensory feel to it. Things like putting together a board game. I had a student with cerebral palsy, for example, who had a tremor, and she couldn't very well move the pieces on a board game. So we put Velcro on all of the pieces, and she was able to then pick it off and move it without disrupting the other parts of the board. So low technology, but allowed her to be included in the games in that particular classroom. I won't go there. Okay, so when we're looking at mid-tech examples in the classroom, these ones start to become a little bit more expensive, but some of them are free and inbuilt. And I know that Bill touched on some of these. So some examples might include things like smart pens. Smart pens, you can actually write on a particular piece of paper with the smart pen, and it records what somebody's saying at the same time. So if I've got somebody with a learning disability, for example, it's a very useful tool for them. And it also syncs directly to an iPad or to a computer immediately. The other ones are reading pens, and these are being used very extensively in Australia at the moment. So a reading pen looks like that, and it is basically a handheld scanner. You can also get ones that translate. So if I've got students with English as a second language, they can be incorporated into reading lessons in the classroom as well. So there's some really interesting technology there as well. ScanMarker is one that will translate. Other things that I use quite extensively are things like online graphic organisers. And these allow students to organise their understanding and information effectively. If I've got students with physical disabilities, they can use the online version of this very simply and easily. So I've put down there a number of different sites that you can go to explore in relation to graphic organisers. So here they can organise their understanding. So when we're talking about action and expression, organising their understanding of a particular topic or section of work. I know that Bill touched on these, but I just wanted to reiterate that there are so many things already built into devices. Claudia was talking about many people using their smartphones, for example. Well, smartphones actually have a wide range of accessible features in them already. And by accessing those, we can really support students learning as well, particularly if they are using things like the smartphone. So some examples I've just pulled off a Microsoft one, and you can actually look at different elements of the computer. You can change the display, you can change the mouse pointer, you can change the contrast, you can turn audio narrator on so that it reads everything on the screen. And a new one that's just come out is eye control. So eye control in particular is becoming, or eye gaze technology is becoming much more refined. Of course, there's also things like Chrome apps and extensions, and I've just put a small selection here of things that help students with disabilities in the classroom. So Dragon Web Extension, for example, is a speech-to-text function. If I have a student that can't write, can't type for some reason, they can actually write an assignment or contribute to a class lesson. Read and Write helps students with dyslexia and dysgraphia, dysorthographia, to actually read and write effectively. So Purify, for example, will just cut the screen down to one very narrow piece, making it easier for people to read. So these are all free extensions that already sit within the Chrome format. Oh, don't worry about that. Done that. The other thing I wanted to talk about too in Medium was things like timing. We have a lot of students, particularly those with, I know I'm running out of time, particularly those with ADHD, for example, who require some of these types of supports to help them in their classroom with their time management. Well, really quickly, high tech in the classroom, things that you might come across, definitely speech generating devices. There's a lot of specific voice recognition software, screen reading software, refreshable braille displays are becoming more usable. And there is some really exciting work being done in augmented and virtual reality. Lots of great things coming out, and one of them is Quiver. So if you need to look up a particular site, it's called Quiver, and they have a lot of free augmented technology that you can use in the classroom. And the other one I wanted to touch on too was 3D printing. So we now have the ability to print prosthetics for a very small price. And this is done with my 3D printer. And you can get most of those designs online for nothing. So there's really good opportunities there as well. Have I run out of time, Rodrigo?
Yes. You still have 2 minutes, okay?
Okay, so I just wanted to talk about the virtual and augmented reality, and there are a couple of really good sites there that you can go and have a look at, and I'll make this available for you at the end. And I don't know if you can see my photo very well, but there's a drawing of a bird, and when you hold your iPad over the top of it, it'll actually bring it to life. And it'll bring it to life in the colours that the student has drawn. So it's a really exciting way for them to explore different elements, and you can have volcanoes and all sorts of different things. The other thing I wanted to touch on was FM and sound field systems. So for students with a hearing impairment, we have students in remote Aboriginal communities here who have significant hearing impairments. So using teacher worn microphones and sound field amplification systems allow everybody in that classroom to hear effectively, not just the student with a hearing impairment. The last thing I've got promise it's last, is something called TouchMapper. So TouchMapper is a free download, and you can create tactile maps. So with a 3D printer, you can create a map of your local area, and very useful if you're looking to assist students with a visual impairment. So my takeaway message is to remember that technology is only useful if it serves a function for that person, but that we can do anything in the classroom with technology. We can support any student to do anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Very interesting, all those examples, complementing what Bill and Claudia brought to us. Well, we are going to the end of the panel, and before that, I would like to share the next steps of this community, now that we have officially launched it. First of all, we would like to invite all of the audience to be part of this community. So here there are two ways of joining us. So there's a form if you access the link on the chat box, or you can also send an email to Luisa from our team here in Rodrigo Mendes Institute, and just please write the topic that is written here on the slide with your name and if possible with the organization you represent. Talking about actions, what is going next? So we are planning to organize another conference in the near future in order to discuss basically those three items. First, we have to talk about the guidelines, the strategic guidelines of our community that will be constructed collectively. Second, we want to prepare a work plan, so to set clear actions and to put everyone at the same page. And third, obviously, to strengthen and to put each other more close and to really work as a community. Just before closing, I would like to thank Zero Project again for this opportunity. I have been participating over the last year, so Zero Project is doing a remarkable work to put this agenda, to put this issue really as a priority around the world. So thank you, everyone. Secondly, to say thanks to our specialists, Bill, Claudia, and Diane. You were great. Thank you for your time and your kindness. And thanks for everyone who is watching. And again, we would like to invite you to be with us on the next phase. Well, hope to see you soon. Stay safe and well, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Nice to meet you all.